There is a phenomenon that science acknowledges but cannot fully explain. Why do some minds seem to draw opportunity, insight, and influence as if by an unseen force? Today we begin an extraordinary journey into the archives, exploring the concept of the magnetic mind. Before we dive deep, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. This series unfolds over multiple parts and you won't want to miss a single revelation. Comment below if you've ever experienced that mysterious pull in your own life. We will be collecting these stories to build the archive. Now settle in, open your mind, and prepare to uncover the hidden frequency that shapes the lives of those who move through the world almost like magnets. There is a problem that appears in human history again and again, quietly enough that most people never name it, but consistently enough that it refuses to disappear. It is the problem of uneven reality. Two people begin in similar conditions. Comparable intelligence, comparable discipline, comparable access to opportunity. They make reasonable decisions. They work. They adapt. They persist. And yet, over time, their paths diverge in ways that cannot be explained by effort alone. One encounters resistance at every turn. Delays. Misunderstandings. Mistiming. Near success that collapses just before completion. The other seems to move through life differently. Doors open without force. Encounters happen at the exact moment they are needed. Information arrives early. Help appears unrequested. Observers often call this luck. But the problem with luck is that it behaves too randomly to explain what we actually see. Because the same people keep experiencing it, again and again, across different environments, different industries, different stages of life. This repetition is the first anomaly. If luck were random, it would distribute itself randomly. It would strike once and disappear. It would visit many and favor none. But this is not what we observe. Instead, we see patterns clustering around individuals, not events. This is uncomfortable because it challenges a foundational belief most societies rely on, that outcomes are primarily the result of visible action. When confronted with someone who seems magnetized toward opportunity, the mind searches desperately for a visible explanation. Talent, charisma, connections, privilege, something concrete, something measurable. But even when those variables are accounted for, something remains unaccounted for. An excess, a surplus of alignment. And it is here, in this excess, that the anomaly begins. Historians rarely document this directly. Scientists hesitate to name it. Psychologists often reframe it. But artists, mystics, and strategists have circled it for centuries using different language. They describe individuals who are in tune. They speak of people who arrive at the right moment. They note figures who seem to bend the room without force. Modern language strips these descriptions down and calls them perception biases, survivorship effects, narrative construction. But dismissals do not erase recurrence. The anomaly persists, and it appears most clearly not in dramatic miracles, but in subtle advantages that compound over time. The right conversation overheard by accident. The impulse to leave 5 minutes earlier, avoiding disaster. The decision to trust a feeling that cannot yet be justified. Each moment is small, insignificant on its own. But when stacked across years, they create trajectories that look supernatural in hindsight. The archive contains countless examples. Inventors who met the exact financier they needed within weeks of abandoning their work. Leaders who avoided fatal mistakes by acting on unease rather than evidence. Ordinary individuals whose lives pivoted on chance encounters that seemed meaningless until decades later. If these events were isolated, they would not matter. But they are not isolated. They cluster, which suggests that what we are observing is not chance, but attraction. The human mind is deeply uncomfortable with this idea because attraction implies participation. It suggests that reality is not merely happening to individuals, but responding with them. This destabilizes the comforting belief that effort alone governs outcomes. And yet, effort alone does not explain timing. Effort does not explain coincidence. Effort does not explain why two equally capable people can enter the same system and experience it entirely differently. At this point, many retreat into cynicism. They decide the world is unfair, that some people are chosen and others are not, that there is no use examining the pattern further. But cynicism is not analysis. The archive does not accept resignation as explanation. Instead, it asks a quieter, more dangerous question. What if the difference is not what people do, but how they are internally arranged while doing it? To approach this question, we must abandon the idea that the mind is merely a generator of thoughts. We must begin considering it as a transmitter and receiver of information, not metaphorically but functionally. This idea is not mystical. It is mechanical. Every biological system operates through signals: electrical, chemical, rhythmic. The heart generates an electromagnetic field measurable several feet beyond the body. The brain produces oscillations that shift with emotional and cognitive states. These are not fringe claims. They are measurable facts. What remains unexplained is how these signals interact with decision-making, perception, and external response loops. Because perception determines attention. Attention determines behavior. Behavior determines timing. And timing determines outcome. This is where the anomaly becomes difficult to ignore. Magnetic individuals do not necessarily think faster. They do not always work harder. They do not consistently outcompete others through visible means. What they do possess is an unusual relationship with timing. They act early without panic. They wait without anxiety. They move when movement matters, and remain still when stillness is required. From the outside, this looks like intuition. From the inside, it feels like alignment. And alignment is the opposite of noise. Most people live in a constant state of internal interference. Conflicting desires. Contradictory self-images. Fear layered over ambition. Thought battling impulse. Impulse battling identity. This creates incoherence. Incoherence scatters attention. It fragments perception. It causes individuals to miss weak signals while chasing strong illusions. A coherent system behaves differently. It amplifies subtle signals. It detects patterns earlier. It conserves energy by eliminating internal conflict. The anomaly, then, may not be that certain people attract opportunity, but that they notice it before others do. And noticing first changes everything. This raises an unsettling possibility. What if magnetism is not about drawing things toward you, but about being internally quiet enough to hear reality before it becomes obvious? If that is true, then most people are not unlucky. They are simply loud. This idea is deeply threatening because it implies that the barrier is not intelligence, access, or even discipline, but unresolved internal interference. And interference cannot be solved by effort alone. It must be resolved through coherence. Before science named it, before psychology modeled it, before culture attempted to monetize it, the phenomenon existed. The archive calls it the magnetic mind, not because it pulls reality unnaturally, but because it reduces resistance so thoroughly that reality appears to cooperate. But before we can understand how this state forms, we must first examine how rare it truly is. Because most minds never experience it. Not once. Not even briefly. And that rarity is the second anomaly. There is a point at which probability, as most people understand it, begins to fail. Not in theory. In practice. Statistics assume independence. One event does not influence the next unless a clear causal chain exists. This assumption allows the world to be modeled, predicted, and controlled, at least on paper. But lived reality does not always obey paper. The archive documents moments where outcomes cluster around individuals in ways that violate intuitive probability. Not impossibly, not dramatically, but persistently enough to become noticeable. Consider this carefully. A single coincidence means nothing. 2 coincidences raise an eyebrow. 10 coincidences across different domains of life demand attention. And yet, most people dismiss these clusters because each individual event can be rationalized after the fact. Human beings are excellent at post hoc explanations. We narrativize randomness until it feels safe. But probability is not offended by narrative. It is offended by pattern. When improbable outcomes repeat around the same node, in this case a single mind, statistical independence collapses. This is not mysticism. This is anomaly detection. In systems theory, when outputs consistently diverge from expected distributions, one assumes either a hidden variable or an unacknowledged feedback loop. The mistake most observers make is looking for that variable externally. They examine wealth, background, network, privilege, intelligence, personality. When none of these fully account for the effect, they stop looking. The archive does not. Instead, it examines timing. Timing is rarely discussed because it is difficult to quantify. It exists between action and outcome, invisible until retrospectively obvious. But timing governs whether effort compounds or evaporates. 2 people can perform the same action with identical competence and receive entirely different results based solely on when that action occurs. Magnetic individuals appear to operate with superior timing, but not because they calculate more data. They calculate less. This is counterintuitive and therefore often ignored. When a system is overloaded with information, it becomes slow. Reaction replaces anticipation. Analysis replaces perception. The mind fills with noise. Most people exist in this state continuously. They call it thinking. But thinking is not the same as perceiving. Perception precedes thought. It filters reality before cognition ever engages. And perception is shaped not by intelligence but by internal clarity. When internal conflict is high, perception narrows. Attention becomes biased toward threat, validation, or urgency. This distorts probability itself, not mathematically but experientially. Opportunities are missed not because they do not appear, but because they do not register as meaningful in time. Magnetic minds appear to live closer to the raw signal. They notice small deviations, subtle changes in tone, minor inconsistencies, quiet openings others overlook because they are busy scanning for louder confirmation. From the outside this looks like foresight. From the inside it feels like listening. The archive contains repeated accounts of individuals who could not explain why they made a decision, only that not making it felt wrong. Later the reasoning became obvious. But at the moment of action, it was unavailable. This is deeply unsettling to rational frameworks because it implies that some forms of knowledge arrive before justification. Probability in these cases seems to bend, not because laws are broken but because the observer is positioned closer to the moment where change begins. Most people encounter probability only after it has crystallized into outcome. Magnetic minds encounter it while it is still fluid. This creates a powerful illusion that the world is responding to them. In reality they are responding earlier. Earlier entry points compound. An earlier conversation leads to earlier trust. Earlier awareness leads to earlier positioning. Earlier movement leads to less resistance. Resistance is the hidden tax of lateness. When probability is examined closely around magnetic individuals, it does not show impossibility. It shows efficiency. Less wasted motion. Fewer corrective actions. Reduced friction. And friction is what most people mistake for fate. The mind resists this interpretation because it threatens a comforting belief that effort guarantees reward regardless of timing or internal state. But effort applied at the wrong frequency generates heat, not progress. This is why two equally disciplined individuals can experience radically different outcomes over time. One expends enormous energy correcting mistakes. The other appears to glide, not because errors are absent, but because fewer are required to be corrected. This difference is cumulative. After years it becomes destiny. The anomaly is not that probability stops working. It is that most people interact with it too late to benefit. When examined from this angle, magnetism loses its mystical glow and becomes something far more unsettling, a consequence of internal arrangement. The question then is no longer whether probability behaves differently around certain minds, but why. To answer that, the archive must turn away from outcomes and toward internal structure, specifically toward coherence. Because probability does not respond to desire. It responds to alignment. And alignment begins long before action. Coincidence is the word people use when an explanation feels incomplete but emotionally convenient. It softens the discomfort of pattern. When something unlikely happens once, coincidence feels appropriate. It preserves the belief that the world is fundamentally random, that no deeper mechanism is at play, that nothing is required of the observer except acceptance. But coincidence becomes a liability when it repeats. The archive does not treat coincidence as an endpoint. It treats it as a signal, not of meaning but of misclassification. Because when coincidences begin to cluster around the same individuals, they stop behaving like coincidences at all. They behave like distributions. And distributions reveal structure. If coincidences were truly random, they would disperse evenly across populations. Everyone would experience a similar frequency over time. Some would have more in one year, fewer in another, but no one would consistently accumulate them across unrelated domains of life. Yet that is not what we observe. Instead, we see the same people repeatedly running into the right person, discovering the right information moments before it becomes critical, being spared from harm through last-second changes of plan, benefiting from chance introductions that later define their entire trajectory. This unevenness is the anomaly. The common explanation is exposure. The belief that these individuals simply place themselves in more situations where coincidence can occur. More meetings, more conversations, more risk. But exposure alone does not account for quality. Two people can attend the same event. One leaves unchanged. The other leaves with a contact that alters their future. Two people can read the same book. One is entertained. The other recognizes a sentence that reorganizes their thinking permanently. Coincidence is not just about being present. It is about being receptive. Receptivity is rarely discussed because it cannot be easily measured. It is not enthusiasm. It is not optimism. It is not even openness in the social sense. It is a state of internal readiness. Most minds are occupied before the moment arrives, preloaded with expectations, burdened with rehearsed identities, distracted by internal narratives that drown out weak signals. When coincidence passes through such a system, it goes unnoticed. The archive notes something subtle but consistent. Magnetic individuals often describe their pivotal coincidences as quiet, unremarkable in the moment. Only later do they realize what they were handed. This is important, because if coincidence were about dramatic interruption, everyone would notice it. Instead, it whispers, and only certain minds hear whispers. The unequal distribution of coincidence may therefore have less to do with the external world favoring some people, and more to do with internal noise preventing others from registering what is already present. This reframes coincidence as a filtering problem. Reality produces more signals than any mind can process. Most are discarded automatically. What remains forms the experienced world. The question is not how many signals exist. It is which ones are allowed through. Magnetic minds appear to filter differently. They are less preoccupied with defending a self-image, less invested in proving something, less consumed by internal argument. This creates spare cognitive capacity, not in the sense of intelligence but in the sense of availability. Availability allows weak signals to survive, and weak signals are often early signals. Early signals feel uncertain. They do not announce themselves confidently. They often contradict consensus. They lack social proof. Most people ignore them. Not because they are incapable of understanding them, but because acknowledging them would require acting without validation. Magnetic minds tolerate this discomfort. They allow the coincidence to remain ambiguous rather than forcing immediate explanation. They sit with it. They remember it. They allow it to influence behavior subtly rather than dramatically. This is why their lives appear to accumulate meaning retroactively. Observers look back and see a chain of lucky breaks. What they are actually seeing is a chain of recognized microsignals that were allowed to compound quietly. This is not magic. It is patience applied to perception. The unequal distribution of coincidence is therefore not evidence of favoritism. It is evidence of attentional asymmetry. Most people's attention is consumed by urgency. Magnetic minds conserve attention by reducing internal conflict. This creates a paradox. The less desperately one seeks coincidence, the more likely one is to notice it. Because desperation narrows attention, calm widens it. This may explain why periods of intense striving often coincide with stagnation, while moments of release coincide with breakthrough. The archive has recorded countless cases where life-altering coincidences occurred immediately after someone stopped forcing direction. Not because surrender summoned opportunity, but because surrender reduced interference. When the internal system quiets, perception expands. And coincidence, once invisible, becomes obvious. This leads to an unsettling implication. What if the world is saturated with potential turning points, but most minds are simply too occupied to register them? If that is true, then coincidence is not rare. Awareness is. And awareness, like probability, is not evenly distributed. It is shaped by internal coherence, which brings the archive closer to the core mechanism behind magnetism, but not close enough yet. Because awareness alone does not explain why certain minds maintain this receptivity consistently over years, while others glimpse it briefly and then lose it. To answer that, the archive must examine the relationship between identity and perception. Because what you believe yourself to be determines what you allow yourself to notice. And that relationship is more rigid and more fragile than most people realize. Opportunity is rarely dramatic when it first appears. It does not announce itself with certainty. It does not arrive fully formed. More often, it enters quietly, disguised as inconvenience, curiosity, or interruption. Most people do not recognize it because they are trained to look for clarity before movement. Magnetic individuals move before clarity. This is not recklessness. It is sensitivity. The archive has observed that people who repeatedly run into opportunity are not hunting for it. In fact, active hunting often repels it. Instead, they maintain a state of internal readiness that allows them to respond when something subtly resonates, even if they cannot yet explain why. This distinction matters. Most minds are oriented toward validation. They wait for permission signals, credentials, consensus, reassurance. By the time these signals appear, the opportunity has already matured, hardened, and become competitive. Magnetic minds enter earlier when the shape is still fluid. From the outside this looks like boldness. From the inside it feels like alignment. They are not chasing something external, they are responding to an internal signal that says, pay attention here. Opportunity then is not a reward. It is a recognition event. And recognition requires perceptual clarity. The reason the same people keep encountering opportunity is not because opportunity favors them, but because they are tuned to notice it in its earliest, weakest form. Early opportunity does not look like success. It looks like ambiguity. It asks questions instead of offering answers. It introduces uncertainty rather than comfort. Most people avoid it instinctively. The human mind prefers stability over possibility. Known discomfort feels safer than unknown potential. This is why so many people encounter opportunity repeatedly and walk past it without registering what it is. Later, when it becomes obvious, they say, I thought about that once. Magnetic individuals do not say this. They do not need to be convinced that something will work. They only need to sense that it is alive. This sensitivity is not emotional excitement. It is quiet interest, a subtle pull that does not demand action but invites it. The archive notes something critical here. Magnetic minds do not experience opportunity as pressure. They experience it as permission. Permission to explore. Permission to test. Permission to engage without certainty. This removes a major source of internal friction. Most people experience opportunity as a threat because it challenges their existing identity. To take it seriously would require admitting that their current path may not be optimal. That realization is destabilizing. Magnetic individuals are less attached to fixed self-concepts. They do not define themselves rigidly by role, status, or past decisions. This flexibility allows opportunity to pass through without resistance. Resistance distorts perception. When resistance is present, the mind searches for reasons not to engage. When resistance is absent, the mind remains curious. Curiosity is the gateway to opportunity. The archive also observes that magnetic individuals ask different internal questions. Instead of asking, will this work? They ask, what is this trying to become? This subtle shift keeps them in conversation with emerging reality rather than evaluating it prematurely. Opportunity favors conversation. It reveals itself gradually in response to attention. This explains why magnetic individuals often appear to stumble into situations others actively pursue for years. They were listening while others were convincing themselves. Timing again plays a role. Opportunity rarely arrives when life feels convenient. It tends to surface during transition, instability, or apparent distraction. Magnetic minds do not attempt to stabilize immediately. They allow instability to exist long enough for something new to form. Most people rush to restore equilibrium. In doing so, they collapse possibility. This creates a recurring pattern. The same individuals repeatedly encounter opportunity because they tolerate ambiguity longer than others. They allow unfinished ideas to remain unfinished without rejecting them. Opportunity requires space. Space is created by internal quiet. Internal quiet is not emptiness. It is the absence of conflict. This is why people who are constantly busy often encounter fewer opportunities despite greater exposure. Busyness is a form of noise. It fills the mind with motion but leaves no room for signal. Magnetic individuals are not idle, but they are selective. They move decisively when movement is required, and they wait comfortably when waiting is appropriate. This rhythm creates availability. Availability attracts convergence. People with emerging ideas gravitate toward those who can hear them without judgment. Information flows toward minds that can receive it without distortion. Opportunity then is not a thing. It is a relationship. And relationships form around resonance. The same people keep running into opportunity because they are resonant environments. Others sense it instinctively. They feel understood, not evaluated. This is why magnetic individuals are often approached rather than approaching. From the outside this looks like luck. From the inside it feels like responsibility. Because to recognize opportunity early is to carry uncertainty longer than most are willing to tolerate. It means acting without applause. Choosing paths that make little sense until later. This creates a delayed reward structure. Most people prefer immediate feedback even if it leads nowhere. Magnetic individuals accept delayed meaning in exchange for long-term alignment. And alignment compounds. This is not about optimism. Many magnetic individuals are deeply realistic, even skeptical. But their skepticism is directed outward, not inward. They trust their internal signal more than external reassurance. This trust is not arrogance. It is coherence. And coherence, once established, becomes difficult to disrupt. Which is why opportunity continues to find them, even when they are not looking, because they are already listening. Skill is visible, can be demonstrated, measured, compared, ranked. It produces outcomes that can be explained step by step. Because of this, skill is comfortable. It fits neatly into systems of evaluation and reward. Attraction does not. Attraction produces outcomes without revealing its mechanics. It appears subjective, unfair, unreliable, and because it resists clean explanation, it is often dismissed or minimized. The archive makes a critical distinction here. Skill determines what you can do. Attraction determines what comes toward you. Most people spend their lives refining skill while ignoring attraction entirely. This is understandable. Skill feels controllable. It responds to effort. It promises improvement through repetition. Attraction operates on a different axis. It does not respond to effort in the same way. In fact, excessive effort can weaken it. This is where confusion begins. Two individuals may possess equal skill. They may even perform identical actions with identical competence. Yet one finds themselves constantly surrounded by collaborators, invitations, resources, and unexpected openings, while the other must push relentlessly for every inch of progress. Observers credit skill because skill is what they can see, but the archive notes that skill alone rarely explains momentum. Momentum is relational. It emerges when others want to participate in your trajectory. Attraction is what creates that desire. This is why highly skilled individuals sometimes remain invisible for years, while moderately skilled individuals rise quickly. The difference is not merit. It is signal quality. Attraction is a signal. It is transmitted continuously, often unconsciously, through posture, pacing, attention, emotional regulation, and responsiveness. Others do not analyze this signal consciously. They feel it. They describe it as presence, confidence, authority, is. But these words are placeholders. They gesture towards something real without naming it. Attraction is coherence made observable. A coherent individual sends fewer mixed signals. Their actions align with their values. Their reactions align with their stated intentions. This consistency creates trust before trust is rational. Trust accelerates convergence. People offer information sooner. They share resources more freely. They invite participation earlier in the process. This creates opportunity before competition. Skill, by contrast, often invites comparison. Comparison invites evaluation. Evaluation invites delay. Attraction bypasses evaluation. This is why magnetic individuals often receive chances that appear unearned. From the outside it looks like favoritism. From the inside it feels like inevitability. Others feel safe moving toward them. Safety is the silent currency of attraction. The archive emphasizes this because most people misunderstand attraction as charisma or charm. But charm is performative. It is effortful. It fluctuates. True attraction is stable. It does not require performance because it emerges from internal alignment rather than external strategy. When a person is internally conflicted, that conflict leaks outward. It manifests as hesitation, over-explanation, defensiveness, or urgency. Others sense this and respond with caution. When a person is internally aligned, their behavior carries less noise. Words arrive cleanly. Actions feel deliberate. Silence feels intentional rather than awkward. This creates gravitational pull. The difference between skill and attraction becomes most visible under pressure. In high-stakes environments, skill may falter under stress. Attraction often strengthens. Calm becomes more noticeable when chaos increases. Magnetic individuals do not necessarily outperform others technically in these moments. They outperform them perceptually. Others look to them for cues, for pacing, for reassurance, for direction. This is not dominance. It is coherence in contrast. The archive contains numerous cases where leadership emerged not from authority or expertise, but from emotional stability. The individual who remained regulated became the reference point. Attraction is therefore not about drawing attention. It is about becoming a reference signal. This reframes success entirely. Instead of asking, "How can I become better?" the more powerful question becomes, "How can I become clearer?" Clarity reduces friction. Reduced friction increases flow. Flow attracts participation. Participation multiplies outcomes. Skill improves linearly. Attraction compounds. This is why skill-based progress often feels exhausting, while attraction-based progress feels supported. The tragedy is that most systems reward skill explicitly and ignore attraction entirely. As a result, people overinvest in technique while neglecting internal coherence. They become sharper but noisier. more capable but less aligned. This creates a ceiling. Beyond a certain point, increased skill produces diminishing returns if attraction is absent. Effort increases, resistance increases, satisfaction decreases. Magnetic individuals break through this ceiling not by working harder, but by resolving internal contradictions. They simplify. They stop performing identities that no longer fit. They release goals that generate constant tension. They align desire with behavior. This internal simplification strengthens signal quality. And when signal quality improves, attraction follows naturally. Not because the world has changed, but because the noise has been reduced. This is why attraction cannot be faked sustainably. Performance collapses under pressure. Alignment does not. The difference between skill and attraction is therefore not cosmetic. It is foundational. And until this difference is understood, magnetism will continue to be misinterpreted as luck, charisma, or unfair advantage, when in reality, it is coherence made visible. In quantum physics, the observer effect refers to a strange and unsettling principle. The act of observation changes the outcome. Particles behave differently when measured. Light acts as a wave until it is watched, then collapses into a particle. Reality, at its most fundamental level, appears to respond to attention. For decades, this idea was confined to laboratories and equations. Physicists argued over interpretation. Philosophers debated meaning. Most people dismissed it as irrelevant to daily life. The archive did not. Because long before the observer effect was formalized in science, its human equivalent had already been documented, quietly, inconsistently, and often dismissed as superstition or coincidence. Certain individuals appeared to alter the behavior of environments simply by entering them. Rooms changed tone. Conversations shifted direction. Outcomes reorganized themselves around presence rather than instruction. This was not authority. These individuals did not issue commands. They did not assert dominance. In many cases they spoke less than others. Yet events bent toward them. The archive refers to this phenomenon as perceptual gravity. Human systems, unlike physical ones, are built on interpretation. Meaning is negotiated moment by moment. And meaning responds intensely to perceived certainty. When an individual observes the world with internal coherence, that coherence becomes contagious. Others begin adjusting unconsciously. They mirror posture. They synchronize pacing. They recalibrate expectations. This is not mysticism. It is neurobiology. Human brains are prediction engines. We are constantly scanning for signals that help us reduce uncertainty. When we encounter someone whose internal state appears stable, we treat them as a reliable reference point. Their observation carries weight. This is why certain people seem to call things into being without trying. They do not force outcomes. They expect them. Expectation is not hope. Hope is unstable. It contains doubt. Expectation is quieter. It assumes alignment. The archive makes a sharp distinction here. Expectation does not strain reality. It invites it. When a coherent observer enters a situation, others sense their lack of internal conflict. This absence of contradiction creates space. Space allows possibility to reorganize. The environment does not respond to desire alone. It responds to confidence without tension. This is where most misunderstandings arise. People attempt to manifest outcomes through intensity, through obsession, through constant visualization and affirmation. These methods often increase internal noise. Noise weakens the observer effect. A tense observer collapses possibility prematurely. Their attention constrains outcomes rather than expanding them. A coherent observer does the opposite. They hold attention lightly. They are open without being needy, focused without being rigid. This balance is rare, and rarity amplifies signal strength. The archive documents cases where individuals consistently arrived at critical moments, not because they planned perfectly, but because their attentional state allowed them to notice openings others overlooked. They saw paths where others saw walls. But seeing alone is not enough. Observation must be paired with belief that action will be met. When belief and observation align, action becomes catalytic. This is why magnetic individuals often describe success as obvious in hindsight. At the time, they were not forcing a breakthrough. They were responding to what felt like a natural next step. Others interpret this as confidence. But confidence is a side effect. The cause is perceptual alignment. The observer effect in human lives does not mean thoughts magically rearrange reality. It means perception determines which signals are amplified and which are ignored. Most people are trapped in defensive observation. They scan for threat, rejection, scarcity, and failure. Their attention reinforces those patterns. Magnetic individuals scan for coherence, opportunity, and alignment. Their attention reinforces those patterns. Over time, the difference compounds. What looks like luck is often attentional training. The archive emphasizes this because attention is one of the few resources that truly shapes experience. Where attention rests, meaning follows. Where meaning follows, behavior adapts. Behavior alters outcomes. Outcomes reinforce belief. Belief sharpens attention. This loop operates whether one is aware of it or not. Magnetic individuals are not exempt from this loop. They are simply aligned with it. Their observation does not fragment their energy. It concentrates it. They are present rather than anticipatory. Responsive rather than reactive. Presence is not passive. It is alert without anxiety. This is why such individuals often slow situations down. Time feels different around them. Conversations deepen. Decisions clarify. Others entrain to their tempo. This entrainment is subtle but powerful. It changes group behavior without instruction. In high-pressure environments, this effect becomes more pronounced. Panic accelerates time perception. Calm decelerates it. The calm observer becomes the anchor. The archive records numerous historical instances where leaders emerged during crises not through expertise, but through perceptual steadiness. They saw what others missed because fear had narrowed their field of view. Observation determines range. A narrow observer sees few options. A wide observer sees many. Magnetism arises not from control, but from expanded perceptual bandwidth. This is why the observer effect cannot be simulated convincingly. It requires genuine internal regulation. Pretense collapses under stress. Only coherence sustains expanded observation. This brings us to an uncomfortable conclusion. Many people do not fail because they lack ability. They fail because their observation is fragmented by internal conflict. Their attention is divided between desire and doubt, intention and fear. This division weakens perceptual gravity. The environment responds accordingly. The observer effect in human lives is therefore not supernatural. It is relational. Reality responds to the clarity with which it is seen. And those who see clearly, without tension, quietly reshape what unfolds around them. Long before the language of psychology, neuroscience, or coherence existed, human societies were already documenting a strange pattern. Certain individuals did not merely act within history. History appeared to rearrange itself around them. These figures were not always kings, prophets, or conquerors. In fact, many of the earliest recorded cases describe individuals of surprisingly modest status. Scribes, merchants, healers, wanderers, observers rather than rulers. What unified these cases was not power. It was impact without force. Ancient records struggle to name this phenomenon. Lacking technical vocabulary, cultures reached for metaphor. They describe these people as favored, touched, walking with fortune, or carrying the wind at their backs. The archive strips away the poetry and looks at the pattern underneath. Across civilizations that never contacted one another, the same behavioral markers appear. These individuals, arrived at moments of transition, were consulted despite lacking formal authority, attracted loyalty without demanding it, were repeatedly present at pivotal events, left disproportionate footprints on outcomes. Importantly, they did not seek recognition. Recognition followed them. One of the earliest documented examples appears in Sumerian merchant tablets, dating back over 4,000 years. Among routine trade records, grain tallies, shipping routes, debt acknowledgements, appears a recurring marginal note referring to a man whose presence smoothed negotiations. He was not the wealthiest trader. He did not own the most ships. Yet deals closed faster when he was present. No explanation is given. The scribes simply note the effect. In ancient China, similar figures appear in early Taoist writings, not as sages, but as ordinary men who encountered unusual alignment. These individuals were described as those who do not struggle, yet arrive. They were not passive. They acted decisively. But their decisiveness lacked aggression. The Taoist texts emphasize something subtle. These men did not oppose reality. They moved with it. Centuries later, Roman historians would describe certain senators and generals in similar terms. Men whose advice carried weight beyond rank, whose predictions were often accurate, whose presence stabilized volatile situations. Plutarch struggled with this. He documented the behavior meticulously but resisted interpretation. He noted that these individuals were often calm, slow to speak, and strangely unafraid of uncertainty. This lack of fear confused contemporaries. In societies built on dominance and hierarchy, fearlessness without force appeared unnatural. As a result, explanations drifted toward superstition. These individuals were said to be blessed by gods, protected by fate, or guided by unseen forces. The archive does not dismiss these explanations outright, but reframes them. Before scientific language, metaphysics was the only available container for unexplained coherence. As literacy spread, so did quieter observations. Medieval monastic records describe brothers whose prayers were said to draw clarity into chaotic councils. They were not abbots. They did not lead. Yet disputes softened when they spoke. Again, no mechanism is proposed, only effect. During the Renaissance, merchant families in Florence kept private journals documenting which negotiators they preferred sending into volatile political environments. One name appears repeatedly across generations. The individual's descendants inherited no title, no estate, no enduring fortune. But for 3 generations, members of this family were described as fortunate in timing. They arrived when doors were open. They departed before danger escalated. They were present at agreements that reshaped trade routes. No one accused them of manipulation. They were simply well-placed. The archive pays special attention to this phrase. Well-placed implies intentional positioning. But these individuals were not known for strategic genius. Their advantage appeared intuitive. This intuition is a recurring theme. Magnetic individuals often describe their choices as obvious at the time. They do not recount elaborate calculations. They speak of sensing when to move and when to wait. This sensing is not mystical. It is embodied perception. The archive cross-references historical accounts with modern psychological profiles and finds consistent traits. Low internal noise, high emotional regulation, strong attentional stability, comfort with ambiguity, minimal identity performance. These traits produce coherence. Coherence produces predictability. Predictability produces trust. Trust alters group behavior. Group behavior reshapes outcomes. The earliest magnetic individuals were not labeled because labels did not exist. But they were noticed, and not always welcomed. Societies often reacted ambivalently. These individuals disrupted established hierarchies without overt rebellion. Their influence threatened systems built on authority rather than alignment. As a result, they were sometimes elevated, and sometimes exiled. The archive documents cases where such individuals were accused of manipulation simply because their impact could not be explained. When effect lacks explanation, suspicion fills the gap. This pattern repeats across eras. Those who cannot be categorized become dangerous. Yet despite resistance, the pattern persists. Magnetic individuals do not vanish. They reappear in every generation, often under different guises. Advisors, artists, financiers, healers, technologists. Their roles change. The signal does not. They are recognizable not by what they claim but by what follows them. Momentum. Convergence. Timing. History records outcomes, not frequencies. But the archive listens for resonance beneath the text. And what it finds is consistent. Magnetism is not new. It is ancient. It has always existed at the edges of explanation, waiting for language capable of describing it without myth or dismissal. That language is only now beginning to form. Every era has knowledge it is not ready to integrate. Not because the knowledge is false, but because it destabilizes too many assumptions at once. The concept of the magnetic mind falls into this category. Societies are structured around predictability. Institutions depend on clear causality. Effort leads to reward, credentials lead to authority, hierarchy leads to outcomes. These frameworks allow large systems to function without constant negotiation. Magnetism disrupts this order. It introduces influence without title, momentum without permission, and outcomes without visible cause. This is deeply uncomfortable for systems built on linear accountability. If attraction exists as a measurable force, then success is no longer fully controllable through policy, training, or compliance. And that is a threat. The archive observes that whenever a phenomenon undermines the illusion of fairness through process, resistance emerges, not from malice but from structural necessity. Systems must protect themselves. Naming magnetism would require admitting that internal coherence can outperform institutional alignment. That perception can outweigh position. That presence can rival authority. This destabilizes hierarchies. As a result, societies tend to fragment the phenomenon into safer categories: charisma, confidence, luck, networking, privilege, timing. Each label explains part of the effect while obscuring the whole. By breaking magnetism into fragments, institutions avoid confronting its unifying principle. Even science has approached this cautiously. Fields like psychology and neuroscience acknowledge coherence, emotional regulation, and attentional stability, but often stop short of exploring their environmental consequences. The focus remains internal. External effects are labeled anecdotal. This is not because evidence is lacking. It is because causation becomes difficult to defend without challenging deeply held assumptions about agency. If internal alignment shapes external probability, then responsibility becomes ambiguous. Who is accountable for outcomes when influence is indirect? This ambiguity is dangerous for bureaucratic systems. The archive notes a recurring pattern. Whenever magnetism becomes too visible, society attempts to neutralize it by forcing it into frameworks of merit or pathology. If the individual succeeds, they are labeled gifted. If they unsettle norms, they are labeled manipulative. If they resist classification, they are marginalized. Naming the phenomenon would require accepting a spectrum of influence that exists outside effort-based morality. And morality, not truth, often governs social acceptance. There is also a deeper resistance, one rooted in identity. Most people derive meaning from struggle. They believe effort justifies reward. The idea that alignment could outperform effort feels invalidating. It threatens self-concept. To acknowledge magnetism is to accept that friction is not always virtuous. That resistance may indicate misalignment rather than moral superiority. This is a painful realization. So the mind rejects it. The archive emphasizes this because denial does not erase the phenomenon. It merely drives it underground. Magnetic individuals learn early not to name what they experience. Doing so invites skepticism or hostility. Instead, they remain quiet observers. They let outcomes speak. This silence reinforces invisibility. Without language, the phenomenon remains scattered across anecdotes rather than consolidated into understanding. Another reason for resistance is fear of misuse. If magnetism were formalized, it could be weaponized. Techniques of coherence could be mimicked superficially. Influence could be engineered without ethics. History offers examples. Whenever knowledge of human behavior becomes systematized, it is often exploited before it is understood. This creates a paradox. To protect society, the phenomenon remains unnamed. But by remaining unnamed, it remains uncontrolled. The archive does not advocate secrecy. It advocates precision. Naming magnetism does not require mysticism or manipulation. It requires acknowledging that human systems respond to internal states as much as external actions. This is already true in leadership, therapy, negotiation, and education. It simply has not been unified under a single framework. Resistance persists because integration is slow, and because the implications are profound. If magnetism is real, then success is not merely earned, it is invited. If influence is relational, then isolation is not always circumstantial, it may be self-generated. If alignment shapes outcomes, then self-regulation becomes a primary skill, not a secondary trait. These ideas demand responsibility without blame. They require individuals to look inward without self-condemnation. That is difficult. So society delays. But delay does not stop emergence. The magnetic mind continues to appear. In boardrooms, laboratories, studios, movements, and moments of crisis. Quietly reshaping trajectories. Not loudly enough to be celebrated. Not invisibly enough to be ignored. Just enough to unsettle. The archive closes part 1 with this conclusion. The phenomenon is resisted not because it is false, but because it is too real, too disruptive, too revealing, too difficult to moralize, and so it waits, unlabeled, unclaimed, operating beneath the surface, until the culture develops language strong enough to hold it without fear. This concludes part 1 of our exploration into the magnetic mind. We've only just begun to uncover the layers of coherence, alignment, and the subtle forces that shift reality for those tuned to higher frequencies. If this has resonated with you, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your own experiences in the comments. We are building a collection of real-world data in the archives. Part 2 will take you deeper, revealing the hidden mechanics that make some minds almost impossibly magnetic, and why others remain locked and struggle despite equal talent. Click on the next video to continue this journey. Your place in the archive is waiting.